GM and welcome to a new Digital Punks episode. Today we have two guests with us and they're from Centaurify. And Centaurify is a Web3 based creative studio, music marketplace and ticketing platform that connects the music industry into the new digital world of Web3. Centaurify aims to revolutionize the ticketing market by providing a secure, transparent platform for buying and selling tickets. And it also provides a creative studio for artists and creators to build Web3 communities. Centaurify has been founded by two incredible people who we have on the podcast today. David and Martin, aka CLMD, who is a Norwegian music producer, DJ, songwriter, and artist with over 1.6 million monthly listeners on Spotify. Yeah, 1.6 million. We'll definitely talk about his career as well, how David and Martin got to know each other, how they learned about Web3 and their own company, Centaurify. We hope, as always, that this conversation inspires artists to join the space and experiment and fans to join to become collectors, avid supporters of an artist and follow their musical journey. So let's go.
Let's do it. So Martin, Daniel, thank you so much for coming. It's great to have you. Martin, maybe let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about CLMD and take us through your artist journey. Maybe talk about your highs, lows, setbacks, lessons, anything goes.
Yeah, so well, I started out with DJing when I was about 14, 15 years old, and I was always into music in that sense. And you know, when we got into like high school parties and so on, I had a friend who used to love these you know, big stadium sound systems, and he would bring them to all the house parties. And I would bring all the music, and that's kind of where it started. And then I understood along the way that, you know, if I really want to make DJing into something to live from, I need to learn how to make songs, and that's kind of where the production started. And then, you know, a couple of years later, I got my first release with Chris Lake on his label, and Axwell from Swedish House Mafia remixed it, and that kind of made it all take off. And suddenly I was signed on Steve Angelo's label and got to tour the world with him and Swedish House Mafia. And that was kind of the super quick beginning. And then from there, you know, I signed a global deal with Sony Music. I have had, you know, multiple platinum selling records, been able to tour the world. Been a very exciting journey. And then I got asked to be a judge on The Voice Norway, and actually the first non-vocal or singing judge on The Voice internationally. So that was a pretty fun experience, together with Morten Harket from a-ha, a living legend, and Len Marlin and Josef from Madcon. So that was a fantastic experience. And yeah, that's pretty much kind of the quick summary of it.
Perfect. Thanks so much. David, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your upbringing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, so I have a little bit of a different background than Martin. I moved to Norway as a 18-year-old back in 2003. Was supposed to just come to Norway for a year, you know, work, you know, save some money, travel the world, and then go and study law. I didn't manage to save any money at all. It was mostly partying and kind of enjoying life, and, you know, meeting different girls and whatnot. But I as a 19-year-old in Oslo, I got a pretty good job as a store manager, you know, within a jeans store, and that was kind of a kickoff in my career in the fashion industry, which lasted for almost 15 years. I went through retail, both as a store manager, but also ran my own e-commerce store, my own streetwear brands. I've always been kind of this creative guy, you know, an entrepreneur in my soul. So started my own fashion agency back in 2009. I was working with some of the top Scandinavian designers, Johan Lindeberg, Mats Nørgaard. I was spending a lot of time in Paris, in showrooms and whatnot, and started my own streetwear brand, which was called MAMB, shortening for me and my brothers, kind of this community getting together. Always been kind of, you know, community driven in that sense. and music and fashion goes much hand in hand, and I was always on different parties, Universal Music parties. Was dressing up different artists, Post Malone, Kygo, Martin, CLMD, and yeah. So I kind of have that entrepreneurial. I also went to business school actually for 2 years. So I'm kind of the numbers guy, creative guy, and entrepreneurial guy who loves to start things and build things. So that is kind of my personality / drive / upbringing and career in one, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So we already know that you two share one thing that you have in common. You like abbreviations. So me and my brother for your streetwear, and CLMD, cool looking Martin Danielle. But how did you guys get together? How did you get to know each other?
So we actually met at the Universal Music Summer Party here in Oslo. I think it's 11 years ago now.
Yeah, something like that.
And we just, clicked and became really good friends. And then, I've always been very into fashion myself, and think that, fashion is, I think probably I would do something in fashion if I didn't do something in music at that time. And I wanted to make, high-end merchandising, because I think it's so sad when all these bands have these, super cheap T-shirts and hoodies, and that kind of, it represents your brand, right? So if the quality of the T-shirt is bad, it says something about the band, right? So I was discussing this with David, and we came up with some designs. We did a collaborative drop together, which was kind of a high-end merch, which sold out and was a really cool project. And then we did it again,
handmade. It was it was pretty cool.
And then we did a second drop of it, which was equally successful. And then I was living in LA at the time, but when I moved back to Oslo, I was looking for a studio, and David, had some extra space in his showroom. So he said, "Why don't you just rebuild that to make it into a studio?" And from there, we've been very good friends.
It was a joyful time, because some of the greatest songs Martin was done from that specific studio. So while I was kind of designing clothes and all that stuff, there was another room where you heard these geniuses making music, different artists coming, doing collaborations, producers. It was a great time. That was for sure. So
very cool.
So and that was kind of the beginning of a long friendship. And also a little bit, maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that was also kind of the starting point of our journey together with Centaurify. So
maybe before we come to that, just a quick question beforehand.
Yeah.
And maybe it's part of all of that. How did you guys learn about Web3 and NFTs? Maybe you can go into that and then tell us about how it all came to Centaurify then.
Martin, we had different stories. Maybe you go first.
I can start. So on my end, my brother actually, he's known in Norway as Mr. Bitcoin, and was into Bitcoin in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. And been very, very, way down the rabbit hole. He was one of the key figures in taking down the OneCoin scam. And has built his own reputation, and he was always bugging me about this blockchain and bitcoins and Web3, and I was, I don't care about this, I just want to make music, right? But with the rise of NFTs in 2017, 18, I kind of saw how it could do something for me with the music, and I started to get slowly interested in it. And then boom, the pandemic hits, a couple of years later, and I'm stuck there. I'm not touring anymore. I'm it's very quiet around me. I'm kind of hitting my head against the wall, and I had time, and I read this article about how we're always thinking about, you want to learn something new, a new language, or something, but you blame it on that you never have time, right? And in the pandemic, it said so. Now we all have time. So if you can't learn something new now, that just means you're lazy. So that's kind of the kick in the ass to dive down the rabbit hole, and it kind of merges into David's story, but I'll let him tell his.
Yeah.
Trippers.
Yeah, so I don't have a super brother who is known as Mr. Bitcoin or anything like that, but I've always been interested in new technologies, and I have a little brother actually who is a gamer who is really was into it very early. But so for me, I've always been very focused on my business, right? My fashion, companies. And I was kind of introduced to Bitcoin pretty early, but I never really touched it. Interested, watched documentaries and whatnot. And like, this could be cool, and this is kind of an interesting story because I was trying to push the board because I wasn't the sole owner of these companies. I had investors and whatnot, and I was trying to push to allow us to accept Bitcoin as a payment in our e-commerce store, which was actually declined in the board because it was kind of, oh, that's only criminals and whatnot. So they didn't want us to do that. But that was back in 2017. Anyways, time moves forward and I'm busy with my fashion things and whatnot. The pandemic hit. And, not only for the music industry, but I mean, the entire world was kind of struggling pretty hard. But when it comes to kind of consumer goods, like, short-term luxuries, like clothing, right? People weren't going out eating, people weren't, doing stuff. So naturally, we were we hit pretty hard when it came to our sales. So I had a lot of free time on my hands. So I of course, I followed the trend this in 2001 and saw that, the cryptocurrencies were coming pretty hard, right? So I did study some trading techniques, especially Ishimoku clouds, which was kind of a technique that we were using pretty much. So I was trading and kind of falling into the rabbit hole, YouTubers, reading the Bitcoin Standard. I was, all these things. And I was kind of, I kind of fell in love with the ideology of it and also what it could do. Then when it comes to, the NFT technologies and whatnot, I mean, this kind of goes a little bit with our story, me and Martin's story, because now I'm jumping in a little bit over to kind of Martin's story. But he came to me during the pandemic because he was struggling naturally. And Martin, you can kind of emphasize a bit more on how it affected the music industry. But basically, we saw that, the music industry and all these problems were really much more apparent when the pandemic hit. And kind of the first problem that we saw that the blockchain or NFT technology could solve is the ticketing part, because, it's a lot of scalping, fake tickets, and a lot of money that is flowing out. Actually, 1/3 of all ticket sales is, and that's kind of like, how many billions? Is it $12 billion or something per year or something that is just going in the pockets of scalpers and scammers?
Yeah, it's almost as much as almost 50%. So
50%,
around $15 billion out of 35 billion estimated for 2025 is a secondhand market. And I mean,
crazy.
that's scalping. That's money that's not going to the artist or the organizers. So it's crazy. And like David is talking about that. Right now, the modern way of making money as a musician is primarily through touring, right? And when the pandemic hit and everyone was sitting at home, nobody was able to tour. And you would think you would make money from streaming and such, but there's very little money in it. So for me, for instance, it was 80% of my income gone. And there's actually statistics that we have that says that, less than or more than 98% of all artists on Spotify makes less than 50K a year on their streaming. So it's becomes very apparent how this affects a very fragile industry, and the whole, not necessarily for the labels and the booking and stuff, but for the artists especially, were really brought to their knees when the pandemic hit.
Yeah. So we took this idea that we had, because Martin had started working a little bit with me, during the pandemic, because he also had a lot of spare time.
Just to quickly say something about that, I was stuck at home trying to make music on no inspiration, and always, as I said, very interested in fashion, and also, I've as I mentioned, I lost 80% of my income, so I was kind of trying to see what can I do. So I basically asked David for an internship, because I said I might as well learn about the fashion industry and how that works, just to kind of spark creativity in a different way. So I started
Love
working
that.
with David, once, twice a week, and that's kind of when also the idea where I was, teaching David about the music industry and how it was structured at the same time as we both were, very hyped on the Web3 scenarios, and that's kind of where that kind of natural birth of Centaurify and the idea of the ticketing system came along.
We took this idea to your brother and first because we had to kind of validate, is this a good idea or not? Because we are not tech guys, from background, right? Even though we have learned tons since that point, but we had to kind of validate, is this, could this be doable? And we got an approval for that, and we went through this incubation program with a company called Ocumfy, which I'm really happy that we did, because they gave us tons of opportunities. We got, and at that time, it was kind of the peak of the bull market, kind of, so we got, it was almost that we got investment money thrown at us at that time. Different scenarios than today, for sure.
Very much.
But that was kind of the starting point. But then again, it should also mention that Centaurify has evolved a lot since that time. Ticketing is one thing, but it's also, when it comes to technology, but it's also, kind of the competition out there, because if you look at it, it's basically a market which is run by, I think it's like 80 or 90% by just a few. So and these ones, they also have the venues, and it's a little bit of a tricky kind of a world to navigate and penetrate in that sense. But yeah, I guess we will touch into the products a little bit later. But we have evolved to be more kind of a activator of communities, or building communities and monetizing on other things than just the ticketing, because the ticketing part has been less important for us as of lately.
It's a Web3 music universe, right? So we want to be, the hub for musicians, for people that are, for fans, for everyone that wants to get into it. And it's not necessarily that we are competing with the DSPs like Spotify or Amazon or iTunes and stuff, but it's, or Apple Music, but it's more of where you would go for the content. So the reference I often use is like what MTV used to be for the previous generation before they started with reality TV, for the next generation.
Nice.
So your core business model revolves around ticketing, right? So because it also...
Well, what really happened along the way is, we had this idea for the ticketing, and yes, we were going along with that, and that was going great, and that was supposed to be, our main product. But at the same time, we were exploring my network, and we ended up in a meeting with Universal Music, which after back and forth ended up with us getting a global partnership with Universal Music. Which kind of changed the business model a little bit, because we had this idea of creating a marketplace where you could sell music related NFTs, and it doesn't necessarily need to be music as in audio, but it could be, booklets, it could be digital stuff, it could be pictures from tour, it could be videos, it could be whatever, as long as it was related to music. And that was supposed to be kind of a way for us to show artists how Web3 works without them taking as much risk. It's pretty scary trusting someone with a whole concert, and if it fails, then they're not going to get mad at the ticketing provider, they're going to get mad at the artist, right? So if we could get artists convinced in how to use Web3 and kind of teach them by doing, that was kind of the way in. But with this partnership coming in, it kind of shifted the business model a little bit, where we were able to see that, wow, we are actually now being, getting the potential to work with every single Universal artist out there, long term. And that kind of changes it a little bit to focus more on the marketplace, more on the NFT packaging of that, and our creative studio.
Yeah, so basically, in order to sell tickets, you need to have a marketplace. So the marketplace was built out anyways. So that was kind of a natural part of it. And when we got this, partnership, and it was also a big project with that as the first kind of drop, which we spent almost 8 months to kind of, develop. And it was, it's a great creative process. It was a lot of hassle technically. to figure it out a little bit, but also kind of the legal aspects of it. But when you're working with companies like these, there is, everything has to be,
Compliant.
it's a lot of due diligence. It's a lot of,
Yeah.
documents. It's all of these kind of things, right? So we made sure that we had all the licenses, that we had, all the, tech due diligence, bank due diligence, all that stuff in place. So when it comes to the ticketing part, just to kind of explain what we have, right, and what we do. So we have a marketplace which acts as a launch pad. That's where you can launch these projects, right? And throughout this experience that we had with Universal creating their trophy project, we can talk a little bit about that later. That was a really long creative process, and where we kind of understood that, hey, I mean, I have a creative background. Martin has a creative background. We have a great network within the Web3 space, partnered with Impossible Brief. We have Untold Studios. We have different metaverse. We could do so much together with our partners. So we realized that we have a Web3 studio here where we can do different cool things for these artists or labels. With the the technology when it comes to ticketing and NFTs, it's kind of the same technology that can be used in multiple places, right? It's kind of basically token gating, right? So so we focused on that and giving the opportunity to artists to use our Web3 studio with different creative solutions. And the third part is that token gating solution that could be used for a ticketing solution. We have tested it out on small venues, but as for now, and this is basically due to the fact that the rest of the world hasn't really catched up yet, because building the entire ecosystem when it comes to custodial. So when because we're not building our own blockchain, that we're not. We're using the Polygon chain for that, because it's the most cheap and EVM compatible part of it. So we have a token gating solution where we also use the proof of attendance protocol, which is a great tool to kind of gamify your fan engagements. So let's say you have, and we usually encourage artists to do free drops, kind of a membership pass. You drop a pass alongside an album or whatever you want, but this pass is then kind of the key. It could unlock, some of the artists are into Discord. We can also help artists get into Discord, setting up the Discords for them, taking care of the management of that as well. And these can, these NFTs or digital assets, as we now call them, because NFTs is a bad word apparently.
Of course.
We use these digital assets to unlock different, roles, or it could be different, channels in those Discord groups. But also, let's say you go to one of these concerts, right, or a smaller venue. You scan your NFT, which will act as a, kind of a reward as a ticket. That would then show that you have been there. So yeah, okay, you're a part of the Discord. We know that, proof of attendance. You have entered, one of the concerts. You do these things that, the rules that are set by these variables that are set by the artists, which then gives you kind of X, kind of like a reward. It could be claiming an exclusive, hoodie, or maybe I shouldn't do this, but this is a kind of a small headphone thing that we're doing. This is a partnership with Sand Sound. So these we could customize for the artist with their own branding and whatnot, limited editions. And these could be a part of as a reward. The most loyal fans will get the most, rewards. Mm-hmm. So it's basically kind of building your audience, getting closer to them, gamifying that, and monetizing on that at the same time.
It's all about fandom, right?
Exactly. But this you can't really do on the platforms that are there today with the Instagrams and the TikToks. Well, you can get the views and the likes, yes. And if you want to monetize on it, you have to go and spend ads, right? And they're not really your it's the platform's data, right? It's not your data.
Yeah.
But in Web3, it's actually you who owns the data, and that's the big difference. And that's what we.
It really comes back to the 1,000 fan theory. I don't know if you guys know this theory, but it's basically if you have 1,000 fans, you're able to have a sustainable music career. And it's the super fans we're targeting. You want to build your community. Building community is harder than ever. There's so much content and information out there, and also as David's saying that with these Web2 platforms, you're not owner of your own content, right? So that kind of building that branding. As an artist today, you see so many artists have they can have a song that has 10 million streams on Spotify, and the next song has 100,000. because the song is popular, but the artist is not. You're not translating those listening streams into fans. Most of us are passive listeners. And it's actually interesting. I just saw, or we did a new breakdown of my own music fans on Spotify, and according to Universal Music, it's if you're somewhere between 7 and 10% active listeners, that means that people that are actually searching for you and listening to you, that's a strong position. And I mean,
Wow.
if it's only 10% of your listeners that are actually actively listening to you, that's a good number. I think that says it all, right?
Yeah.
Algorithmic playlist, right? I mean, a lot of us are stuck in playlists. I mean, I'm reflecting on my own consumption behavior. When I go on a road trip, I have sometimes playlists on, and I'm biting my lips sometimes. And who was that again? And then, so it's
exactly.
Yeah.
No, but it happens all the time, right? I think we all have been there where we're like, no, I've never heard of that artist, and then you mention a song, and then it's, oh yeah, I know that song, I love that song, and that didn't happen 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You bought the CD, you went home, you read the booklet, you put on the album just for that song, and then you fell in love with the rest of the album, and that's how you became a fan. This doesn't happen anymore.
But true fans exist, and we know that, and we believe that.
Yes.
True fans still exist, and that's kind of like, we want to create this universe, or this platform where we can gather these fans, super fans, the 1,000 fans, and connect them with their favorite artists. So, and we consider ourselves more like not a kind of a typical Web3 company. It's a Web 2.5. And the reason I'm saying that is that we, for some artists, it's a little bit intimidating to try this out, and all the fuzz that is going on in the US with SEC and all this stuff, right? It's a tricky space to navigate, right? So we kind of offer some artists just dip their toes in it. Let's start with it, setting up a Discord for you and try it out, right? And it kind of I think we are so early. We are really early, and we know that the entire ecosystem is not there yet for the normal person to navigate the space. It will come, but we are kind of now in that phase where we have to educate until the rest kind of regulations is in place. In Europe, MiCA, these rules are coming out now next year. The US is struggling a little bit to catch up, but it's kind of it's coming, and until that time, it's just kind of educating, and what I think is cool though is that we see that these labels, and the ones that you kind of beforehand would think that they would kind of be a little bit slow, like the Universals, the Sonys and whatnot, that they were kind of pretty early to try it out, to at least as an example, these the trophy project that we did. Maybe Martin, you would like to explain a little bit about.
I just want to mention that there's the major labels have always tried to fight technology when it comes to music, right? And as David mentioned, it's really great to see them now embracing it instead, and seeing that okay, this could potentially be the path forward, rather than trying to lawyer up and sue everyone that has something to do with Napster or LimeWire or any of these previous ones like they did in the past. Right. But yeah, so our first real project that we did with Universal Music, it's called the Universal Trophy Collection, which basically is a trophy plaque, in the way when an artist gets certified platinum or gold or silver, they get this trophy, right, of a disc. And this has been around since the 1950s. And it's been usually a transaction between artist and label. It's a gift from the label to the artist to acknowledge their success, which has been great, and we all know about them. But as fans, we've never really been able to interact with it or be part of it. Yes, you can find someone on Pawn Stars and selling some Elvis plaque or something like that, but the way that Universal wants to go about it is bring this kind of into the future, into what could be next. So the idea is to release a trophy with every single song that comes out, and it starts with as a basic plaque, And then, it's up to the artist what they want to do with them, if they want to give them to the fans or if they want to sell them to the fans or how they want to distribute them, but it will be a limited amount, right? And as the song progresses and has success, it reaches certain milestones. So let's say 1 million streams, 10 million streams, 100 million streams, billion streams, and then the metadata of the plaque or the trophy will update itself so that your NFT really becomes cooler and cooler. And then again, it's back to the artist what that means. What do you get as a super fan for holding this trophy and being part of that journey? So he can motivate streams through saying, okay, if it reaches 100 million, every trophy holder is going to be invited into a Zoom, or could be backstage tickets, or could be exclusive listening to the next album, or whatever it could be. And in this way, you're actually creating such interaction with your fans in a whole new way, and you also know who's kind of collecting these and being part of your super fandom, which I think is fantastic. And and it's also a way for you to, as a fan, to be able to show that you were there before this song became we all say yeah, but I was a super fan of them long before they became famous, right? But there's no way to prove it. And I think that for fans, that's kind of a part of that, as David says, the gamification part of it, that you get the bragging rights, you get to show off that, you were actually there. And I think the best example of that is when Nirvana toured Europe, and everyone, ask anybody, they saw them play in Europe, but the fact is that they never played for more than 500 people at the same time. So there's maybe 5,000 people that have seen them live.
Some people are lying, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly, right? So, but if you
but
have,
we don't
if
have
you have the
proof.
collectible to prove it, right? So that's kind of the idea behind it. But it's it started out with the universal trophy, which basically was a free mint that we did. Huge success, minted out in 30 minutes. And that basically all holders of that gets automatic access to every future drop. And then we have had some drops. We did a drop with during the Eurovision with Loreen from Sweden, who actually won. Yes. And also with Alessandra from Norway, who came in 5th place. And the cool thing about that is that Loreen put in at what level was it? 50 million, David?
Yeah, 50 or 100, I think.
So at I think it was the 50 million. Once that song reached a 50, or maybe it was 100. Anyways, then it unlocked a raffle for people to win tickets that holders could win tickets to next year's Eurovision in Stockholm. So
finals in Stockholm, which is super cool. So
that's
kind of the
perfect example of how it works, right?
Yeah.
I love that. So basically, Centaurify, as you said, is a Web3 studio with the goal to give back the power more to the artists and nurture those artists and fan relations, right? So with different tools such as ticketing, merchandise, token gating, new revenue opportunities, also gamification, right?
Fan passes.
Fan passes.
Okay, digital merch.
That's really digital merch as well. That sounds pretty great. In your opinion, what if a new artist comes in and you want him to join the space or try out those tools? What are the key advantages of utilizing those tools and NFTs as the basis below all of this, without calling it NFTs, of course? What's the key advantage for an artist to use all those things?
Well, maybe I'm kind of taking the question out from Martin, because Martin is the artist here, but kind of like what I feel is kind of the combination of them, right? For when we speak with the artists, I push a lot the fan pass, because it can be as a starting point for a collectible only. If you don't want to, if you feel that, no, this wasn't for me, I mean, it could just be a collectible, but you can always build upon it, right? So if you want to do it as a, let's say, just I'm going to release this fan pass or this, this art, let's say a GIF or whatever, which is connected to a song or album I released, and that's it. But you can also then build a pop on top of that. Okay, let's try Discord. Okay, we're setting that up for them. This asset will unlock a different channel. or we can use this as an entrance, as a VIP ticket. We're trying to kind of push, when it comes to the ticketing side, the VIP sections, because it's a little bit smaller and it's a little bit easier to handle now in the beginning for us. So it's kind of like whatever the artist and their management are up for and think is good for their brand, because artists are considered as a brand as well. Not everything fits into their brand profile. So we find kind of a solution that it works for the artist. But we have kind of the three core products or core services. It's the kind of the art audio collectible, which unlocks a content, which could be a remix or the song itself. That's one. Then you have the second most popular thing is the phygital merch. Phygital is a word I kind of despise a little bit because it sounds basically the asset is connected to something physical. It could be a limited edition of a hoodie. I always talk about fashion because it's a little bit of my passion, but it could be vinyl, right? A limited edition, 300 vinyls or whatnot. Then you have the fan pass. Some of the artists are a little bit scared for the fan pass because it feels so big, but it doesn't have to be. It's something that you can build upon, right? And when the technology and people are getting more into it, you can always expand on it. So those are kind of the things. So I think one, Centaurify is very artist-centric, creative. When we understand the artists, we speak the same language when we sit down with the management and the artist or the labels. So it's pretty easy for us to kind of understand what they want. And two, we have the tools to gamify in different needs. And I think kind of that's where we have been succeeding.
Yeah, I think it's the simplicity, right? And it's the connection with the fans and knowing, you as an artist, you use so much time on trying to distribute your message and contacting your fans and so on, and you're using time and effort on shooting with a shotgun and hoping that something sticks, rather than, if you know who's already invested in you, it's so much easier to invest back in them, right? And rewarding those super fans that are buying into your stuff because they're already dedicated. It's much easier to give off yourself, if that's just a Google Hangout or whatever it is. You feel very exposed doing like a YouTube live and hoping that someone will show up. But if you can invite in people that are already wanting to connect with you, you get that safer space and you get that confidence in yourself as an artist. And I think it's a great way to build that fan community out, and also as David mentions with the digitals, I think that for instance our vinyl idea is a great example where it's not only that you're able to give someone a physical reward, but it's also a greener solution than what we have today, because today you just guess, am I going to sell 1,000 of this vinyl? Am I going to sell 10,000? Am I going to sell 100,000? I don't know. So if you do let's say I do an NFT drop of it and I say that, okay, you buy the authenticity of the vinyl, and then after you sold however many, you make exactly that many, right? And you're not ending up with tons of dead stock. So I think it's it's a great way to move forward. Yeah. To knowing what you're selling and knowing not overshoot or undershoot as an artist and waste tons of money and efforts on things that maybe it's too small or maybe it's too big. Now you know exactly who you're selling to.
What's your experience like working with, especially, I mean, not so much talking about label artists, but independent artists and creators? There's always this stigma I'm fearing to promote my creations, and there's, I don't know, this vulnerability about like, okay, I gotta put this song on Spotify. I'm making myself naked in front of millions of people. Yeah. This fear and this sort of like myth also coming into play, where I'm no marketer. I'm more like a sculptor versus like a salesman. So there's crafting and marketing side. How do you see that when you work with artists? Is that something like shining through when you're trying to explain the value proposition of your services?
Well, yeah, Martin, would you?
No, I think in that sense, it takes a little bit of the pressure off. And I just read this quote, I think it was yesterday, from Rick Rubin, saying that only, I'm paraphrasing here, but only you as an artist can evaluate your own success. No number, nothing like that can put what does success mean to you, right? But today with Spotify, so we're so how many streams do I have? How many monthly listeners do I have? We're always chasing these numbers, and we're measuring our success of the song. Rather, if you truly love that song and you want to put it out there, it doesn't matter how many streams it has, But if you kind of see, I only got 1,000 streams on that song, that's going to put you down and say something about, maybe challenge, your self-esteem in that sense,
Yeah.
So I think that in this way, it's a safer way to communicate where you're not always being measured towards everyone else, especially if you're doing, low number drops or even open drops, where you're not necessarily need to you're not chasing sold out, or you're not, these kind of things, where it's more about just giving out, this is my art, this is my craft. And if you want to come in and support that, that's fantastic. And it kind of takes away kind of a little bit of that threshold that you're chasing the numeric success.
Yeah. It's but essentially, also, about connection, right? At the end of the day, all of these vanity metrics, like how many followers do I have? Did I get 1 million views on my TikTok? That's all great, but how does it convert to actually one person that is consistently going to be spending money on you like every year? And then,
exactly.
Where we try to
I think it's I have a great example of that. I just released a new song which didn't necessarily do as well as most of my other songs have done in the first opening weekend.
Is it my favorite?
The response from that song has been huge. A lot of people have been sending me messages. I love that song, and more than on other bigger successes. Which means that even though the overall number is lower than expected or what I wanted it to be, it's still hitting more with the people that I wanted to hit with, right? And I think that's it's important to take that into perspective as well.
One thing which is also a big plus when it comes to working with independent artists in Web3 is that there is a little bit more creative freedom. We're not kind of restricted by the big labels that has certain rules set. So it's a little bit more freedom to work, which I cherish a lot, because as a creative person, it's always great to have the full mind exposed to the creative process rather than just like, this is the box. So just wanted to mention that as well.
Okay, I think there would not be an interview without talking about AI at some point.
Of course.
I want to throw this in the ring. So how, things are very rapidly changing, and the industry is trying to catch up as to what is happening all around us. A lot of artists are taking positions for and against AI. In your opinion, where do you stand with AI, and what's your outlook on how it's going to enable artists to accelerate their creativity, maybe help with collaboration and self-express themselves in the future?
I'll pass this one over to you, Martin.
I need hot takes. I need the hot takes.
No, but personally, I think it's fantastic. Every tool at your hands, why not use them, right? So if you ask me what I'm thinking about AI in general, I'm much more skeptical. But in music form, I think that there's a lot of people out there that's going to be put out of a job, and when it comes to kind of creating these more generic jingles and these kind of things. But I think that us as humans will always cherish the kind of human touch in music. So we're not going to end up in a place, I don't think at least, that where all music consumed is AI generated. But at the same time, I already integrated AI in my productions, sending out beats, trying to, find fillers, even getting vocals in, just even if it's just a demo vocal, I'll have, one of my male singer friends saying something, and I'll feed it into the AI and get it back as a female, right? So it's already, taking part of the daily use. And I think that, if it betters the work, why not use it?
I know that a lot of people are using it for sampling, extracting drums and that as well. I've tried it myself, actually, because I was, as I mentioned to you guys, I'm very interested in technology. So I kind of bought myself some equipment to produce music and tried out some of these AI tools. So, but I don't know. I always believed in the human kind of creativity. But when you work in Web3 and tech, you kind of have to be open. You kind of have to see, the possibilities that these things opens up, right? And it could be, producing art for the artists, who might not have a team that can create, something for them. It could be, marketing plan. It could be anything, right? So I think it, of course, will be making life easier for artists, and I think we will have more productivity in that sense now in the beginning. But complete takeover, I don't know. Ooh,
I think I mean it's like with anything when it comes to AI and new technology. Use it with care and be respectful and we all have to kind of keep that skeptical eye on it. But I think that as long as the tools are there to be used, use them with the good conscience.
Yeah, thank you for your take on that, and also for talking about Centaurify, for your vision on Centaurify. And before we end this episode, we always want to learn a little bit about our guests outside of what they're doing in the space. So the first question on that would be, outside of Centaurify and what you already told us, what hobbies or activities do you enjoy in your free time that help you relax, maybe recharge your creative energies? Maybe David first and then Martin.
Well, I have two beautiful children, a 4-year-old daughter and a 6-month daughter, a baby. So I get a lot of my energy from that, or kind of, they take a lot of my sleep, but I get a lot of energy from them. And I have a beautiful wife who so I get a lot of my energy from my family. But besides from that, well, I have one thing that I do in common with Martin, but I also had a little bit of a spiritual journey lately. So I try to wake up 5 a.m. every morning and do some meditation. I kind of figured out that at the late, I'm soon 40, believe it or not. Never mind. I'm trying to meditate every day, and I go to the gym. Every day I try to go to the gym, even though it's just 30 minutes, just for one, whatever, because it's kind of having the balance in your brain. That, and then I have this mental personal coach, trainer, boxer trainer, who is focused on mental health and boxing, which I spend once a week with. And also once every second week with me and Martin are doing it together. A great guy, Coach Pat from New York, Brooklyn, New York, who moved to Norway to play basketball. Actually, he's a great guy, and he keeps kind of my life energized and in balance, where I can't get it myself. So that's kind of, and it's something I would recommend to anybody out there. Try to meditate a little bit, go to the gym, and cherish the loved ones. Spend time with your family. I think that is a little bit, yeah. Martin, you and I box sometimes together.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to hear about
that. Oh yeah, it's a lot of the same things as David is already mentioning. I'm a father of two as well, 2 boys, 4 years old and 1 year old, and also boxing. But I also am obsessed with golf. So I try to use as much free time as I can to play golf, and it's not necessarily so much about the sport. Well, it is about the sport as well, but taking your mind off everything and just focusing on that little white ball and walking out in nature for a couple of hours. It's very mindfulness for me, even though it can be frustrating in the game. So, but yeah, that's kind of, whenever I have some free time, that's where I want to use it.
Great. Yeah. No, golf is great. There's one thing that I wanted to specifically ask you. So I read about something, and you need to confirm this. There's something called an official tunnel safety day in Norway. There's 1,000. You didn't know?
No.
So there's 1,000 tunnels crossing the country, and it's no wonder that there's a tunnel safety day apparently. So, but if you don't know anything about it, maybe that's the wrong question to ask.
I feel that they have these. I mean, I feel that might be kind of once a week, because they're always repairing these tunnels. So I mean, every
I
week,
think you're talking about Germany.
No, but I think it's also more specific for the west coast of Norway, because of all the fjords, a lot of tunnels going through the mountains. More than we're both based in Oslo, and Oslo is not. It's pretty flat.
Yeah. I'll take that.
Not so much focus on the tunnels.
Yeah, but I mean, I spent a couple of years, when I had my fashion agency, traveling around, the country, selling, clothes to shops, and I was traveling all over the place, and especially on the West Coast, they have tons of tunnels. Some of them were kind of like 9-10 kilometers long, which is pretty scary in a sense. But in some places, it's kind of like I think it's from Bergen to Ålesund. This is just kind of like 20 kilometers or something. If you look at the road, but it's 5 ferries plus tunnels, so it takes you kind of almost 9 hours.
What?
Otherwise, you have to travel around the mountain and back up again, which it takes the same time. So it's a beautiful country. I recommend people to visit because as a Swede, I forgot to mention I'm Swedish, moved to Norway, but the kind of the environment and landscapes in Norway are breathtaking. It actually is. So some tunnels, yes, but it's
I actually played a festival all the way north in Norway this summer, and the drive from the airport, you have to go into this fjord, and you drive for 1 hour into the fjord and then 1 hour back to get around. And I mean, at the beginning, after 10 minutes of driving, you see the point that you're going to, but there's 2 hours until you're there.
Oh man,
Oh,
that must be
gosh.
frustrating.
We don't have the Autobahn here, guys. We don't have that. We don't have the same thing as you guys have.
But we don't have fjords, so
Yeah,
and they're beautiful.
I mean, it's very scenic. It's very scenic. It's just too bad
guys
you see the same fjord for 2 hours.
Nice. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And the last minute, we always give it to our guests. So I don't know, maybe 1 minute for both of you or one together. You guys can decide. Tell the listeners whatever you want. The last minute or the last 2 minutes are yours.
Oh, wow.
We're putting you on the spot a little.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I guess it's just to go check out Centaurify. Easy as that. And if you're an artist, reach out, contact us, get to know us a little bit more, get to know the project, and we'd love to have you on board.
Exactly. Either if you want just to dip your toes into Web3, or if you're full into it, reach out and we will help you in the way we can. So check out Centaurify.io. I guess that's one thing. And if you're an artist, thinking about, should I or do I dare to do this? I think you should, because life is too short not to fucking try. Oh, I'm sorry if
That's okay.
You have to try, right? And because if you don't try, you will never know if you succeed. Just like we did with Centaurify, we had this idea, and all of a sudden, we have a partnership with the world's largest record label. So it's, I think it's just throwing your neck out there and grab the microphone and do it, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great thought to end it. Famous last words. Talking about famous last words, right?
Yes,
All right.
You can find, of course, all listeners can find the link in the show notes as well, so you can check out Centaurify.
Perfect. Guys, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely, yeah. We're very excited to see what Centaurify grows into, and we'll definitely thoroughly watch you guys what you do next, and wish you all the best on that journey and changing the life of one artist at a time, right? That's what it's about.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.